In December 2016, workers at a Kansas demolition yard dropped brand-new aircraft into recycling containers. 80 Cessna Skycatchers, never flown, still wrapped in factory plastic, were being crushed into scrap metal. These weren't damaged prototypes. They were finished airplanes that Cessna simply couldn't sell. Just 9 years earlier, over 1,000 orders had flooded in for this aircraft. Industry experts predicted Cessna would dominate the training market just as it had for decades. The legendary manufacturer that built more aircraft than anyone in history was back to reclaim its throne. But here's what nobody at Cessna anticipated. While they were busy outsourcing production to China and watching prototypes spiral into uncontrollable crashes, a small Austrian company had already stolen their customers. Diamond Aircraft had spent 13 years doing exactly what Cessna thought only Cessna could do, building the world's best training airplane. The Skycatcher disaster cost Cessna hundreds of millions of dollars and destroyed its reputation in the light aircraft market. Meanwhile, Diamond's DA20 became the gold standard for flight training worldwide. This is the story of how the most iconic name in aviation tried to outsmart an underdog competitor, and how that arrogance backfired spectacularly. For nearly 3 decades, Cessna owned flight training. The 150 and 152 series didn't just dominate the market, they defined it. Over 7,500 aircraft rolled off the Wichita production lines, training more pilots than any aircraft family in aviation history. Walk into virtually any flight school in America during the 1970s, and you'd find rows of high-wing Cessnas lined up on the ramp. Then, in 1985, everything collapsed. Product liability lawsuits had spiraled completely out of control. Insurance costs alone added tens of thousands of dollars to every aircraft sold. When General Dynamics acquired Cessna that year, the new owners made a brutal calculation. Light aircraft simply weren't profitable anymore. They shut down the entire piston single production line. Every trainer, every personal aircraft, gone. For 22 years, the company that built more aircraft than anyone in history offered 0 two-seat trainers. Not one. But here's what Cessna didn't anticipate. Nature abhors a vacuum. So does the aviation market. In 1981, an Austrian aircraft designer named Wolf Hoffmann founded a small company called Hoffmann Flugzeugbau. His vision was radical. Build aircraft from composite materials instead of riveted aluminum. Use glider design principles to create unprecedented efficiency. Prioritize safety above everything else. By 1993, this company had evolved into Diamond Aircraft and introduced something remarkable: the DA20 Katana. While Cessna sat on the sidelines, Diamond methodically conquered the training market Cessna had abandoned. They established a production facility in London, Ontario, specifically to serve North American customers. By 2008, over 1,000 DA20s had been delivered worldwide. The numbers told an extraordinary story. Diamond's fatal accident rate was 0.16 per 100,000 flight hours. The general aviation average, 1.2. That's not marginally better. That's 7 times safer than the industry standard, the US Air Force noticed. They selected the DA20 for their initial flight screening program, trusting Diamond to evaluate whether pilot candidates had the right stuff. Aviation Consumer magazine conducted exhaustive comparisons and reached a stunning conclusion. The DA20 had the best safety record of any airplane they had ever reviewed, bar none. Diamond hadn't just filled Cessna's void. they had built something genuinely superior. Modern composite construction, exceptional fuel efficiency, burning just 6 gallons hourly, a safety cell certified to withstand 26 G impacts. For 2 decades, Diamond quietly built an empire in Cessna's shadow. Then Cessna finally noticed and decided to strike back. The strategy they chose would prove catastrophic. In July 2006, Cessna made a stunning announcement at EAA AirVenture, Oshkosh. They were returning to the 2-seat trainer market with something called the Skycatcher. The price point seemed almost impossibly aggressive, under $100,000 for a brand new Cessna. The response was electric. Orders flooded in immediately. Within months, over 1,000 customers had placed deposits. Industry analysts predicted total market domination. Cessna was back, and Diamond's reign appeared destined for a swift end. But then Cessna made a fateful decision that would haunt them for years. On November 27, 2007, the company announced that the Skycatcher would be manufactured in China by Shenyang Aircraft Corporation. This wasn't some independent contractor. Shenyang was a subsidiary of a Chinese government-owned consortium with deep military ties. The backlash was immediate and fierce. American customers who had dreamed of owning a new Cessna suddenly found themselves questioning whether they wanted a Chinese-built aircraft. Cessna launched a public relations campaign to calm the controversy. It didn't work. Then came the crashes. In September 2008, a Skycatcher prototype entered a spin during testing. The pilot fought for control. Nothing worked. He reached for the ballistic parachute handle, pulled it. The parachute failed to deploy. The pilot bailed out personally as his aircraft spiraled into Kansas farmland. 6 months later, another prototype entered an uncontrollable spin. This time, the parachute deployed, but tangled. The aircraft was destroyed. Cessna had now lost 2 prototypes to the same terrifying problem. The company redesigned the entire tail section. These modifications added weight, complexity, and cost. Here's where the betrayal became complete. That promised $100,000 price tag. It climbed to $149,000, a 49% increase that shattered customer trust entirely. Think about this for a moment. Cessna had promised an affordable trainer. They delivered a Chinese-built aircraft that cost more than competitors, suffered catastrophic testing failures, and arrived years behind schedule. Orders evaporated in droves. The company had projected delivering 300 to 400 aircraft annually. In 2010, their first full production year, they managed just 30 deliveries, 30 aircraft, against 300 projected. By October 2013, CEO Scott Ernest stood before reporters at the National Business Aviation Association convention and delivered the death sentence. The Skycatcher, he declared, had no future. Of 1,000 initial orders, Cessna ultimately sold just 192 aircraft. While their program collapsed spectacularly, Diamond wasn't watching passively. They were winning customers Cessna would never recover. The contrast between these two companies reveals everything about why one succeeded and the other failed catastrophically. Diamond spent 40 years mastering composite aircraft construction. Every design decision prioritized pilot safety and operational efficiency. Their DA20 emerged from glider heritage, incorporating aerodynamic principles refined across decades of European manufacturing excellence. Cessna took shortcuts. They outsourced to China to save money. They rushed testing to meet deadlines. They prioritized quarterly earnings over engineering integrity. The results speak for themselves. Diamond's safety record remains unmatched in general aviation. Their composite safety cell, certified to withstand 26G impacts, has protected pilots in accidents that would have proven fatal in traditional aluminum aircraft. Flight schools worldwide specifically choose Diamond because insurance companies recognize this extraordinary safety advantage. The Skycatcher. It couldn't even survive spin testing without killing prototypes. But here's what ultimately destroyed Cessna's ambitions: customer trust. When Diamond promises a delivery date, aircraft arrive on schedule. When they quote a price, customers pay that price. Their continuous improvement philosophy means each aircraft generation performs better than the last. Flight training organizations like CAE, one of the world's largest aviation training providers, place repeat orders year after year. Cessna broke every promise they made. Delivery dates slipped repeatedly. Prices exploded by 49%. Performance fell short of competitors. Customers who had trusted the legendary Cessna name felt genuinely betrayed. The final humiliation came in December 2016. Photographs emerged on social media showing something shocking. Workers were dropping brand new Skycatchers into demolition dumpsters. 80 aircraft, never flown, still wrapped in factory protective covering. Cessna chose to crush them rather than sell them at prices that might embarrass corporate leadership. Meanwhile, Diamond's production lines kept running. The DA20, their four-seat derivative, surpassed 2,200 deliveries. Major flight academies across Europe, Australia, and North America standardized on Diamond fleets. The company that Cessna had dismissed as a minor European competitor now dominated the very market Cessna once owned. Aviation Consumer magazine summarized it perfectly. The DA20 possessed the best safety record of any airplane they had ever evaluated. No asterisks, no qualifications, simply the safest trainer available. Cessna had every advantage imaginable. Brand recognition built over 7 decades, manufacturing infrastructure spanning continents, financial resources that dwarfed their Austrian competitor entirely. None of it mattered. Diamond built better aircraft. Customers noticed, and 80 crushed Skycatchers became monuments to corporate arrogance. The images from that Kansas demolition yard tell the entire story. 80 aircraft that represented Cessna's dreams of reclaiming the training market, crushed into scrap rather than sold at a discount that might embarrass the company. Meanwhile, Diamond aircraft continue rolling off production lines in Austria and Canada. Flight schools from Germany to Australia choose their planes. The US Air Force trains pilot candidates in DA20S. Major training providers like CAE place fleet orders year after year. Cessna didn't lose to Diamond because they lacked resources. They lost because they believed their brand name would compensate for an inferior product built in the wrong place for the wrong reasons. They chose cost-cutting over innovation, China manufacturing over customer trust, and corporate pride over market reality. Diamond succeeded by doing the opposite. They invested decades in composite technology. They prioritized safety above all else. They earned their reputation one aircraft at a time. The training aircraft market didn't need Cessna to validate it. It needed someone willing to build something better. Diamond did exactly that, and the graveyard of crushed Skycatchers stands as permanent proof of what happens when giants forget why they became great. If you want to see how other aviation legends stumbled, subscribe now. The next story might surprise you even more.